Hello, I'm Ben from IT Desk, and on today's episode of Take It to the Max, we're exploring what the cloud environment looks like in 2026 for small, medium enterprises. And with me, I've got Morgan, who's our technical solutions engineer.
Hello.
And yeah, we'll get started.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So we'll cover a few myths first on cloud.
Yeah.
The first one being cloud only makes sense at large scale.
Yeah, that's one that you do hear quite a lot. And it's more around the fear of the pricing with what comes with cloud, because it's such a large area. The things like Microsoft Azure, they cover so many different products and areas where you can move things from your on-premise to the cloud.
Yeah.
A lot of people would assume it'd be for larger businesses of like 200 to 300 plus employees, but in reality, it's down to what you populate within things like Microsoft Azure and AWS to fit your business.
Yeah, so you can scale cloud to fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not one size fits all. You scale it to what your business is.
Yeah, especially if you're starting off in the cloud, you've got a lot of choices in terms of specifically around, say, like virtual machines.
Yeah.
If you want to move like your RDS system or anything to do with that's on your server, including SQL and such, you've got so many choices in terms of size, like your resource, that you can start off small.
I've seen that especially for businesses that want to be work remote and have a remote workforce, cloud features just gives them a lot more capability for that.
Yeah. The remote access is very good with being able to access anywhere. Although coming with that, a lot of people may worry about security.
Yeah.
Which rightfully so, with it changing from, say, having an on-premise server where it's only accessed on your local network in the office to going to a cloud solution that you can access anywhere, any country. You've got to make sure that you've got the correct security in place to stop people that shouldn't be accessing getting to your resources.
Yeah, I think we briefly touched on this, but I've got down here that the second myth that a lot of SMEs talk about is that it can be too unpredictable, the pricing for cloud.
Yeah.
So what features and models have you used to make it predictable, and is it a myth?
Let's say specifically with Microsoft Azure, as we primarily work with.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tools like what Microsoft provide as your calculator to be able to put in the resources you're looking to set up within the Microsoft Azure systems and see what sort of price you'd expect on a monthly basis. Which, along with that, once you have those sort of resources set out and you know what you're going to be putting in place, you can put things like cost budgets and do a lot of cost analysis around specific resources and over whichever periods of time you're looking at to see what's being spent to make sure you're not overspending in areas that you don't want to.
Yeah. I think another thing just going on cost is we've seen a lot less downtime for businesses because of how resilient cloud services give them.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of businesses don't factor in the cost of downtime if they were on-prem versus on cloud.
Yeah.
So the money savings that they get for having their business being able to work, being on cloud, is often overlooked.
Yeah. Especially if you're looking at a physical server, say if something's happened on there, like a disk's failed and you haven't got the correct RAID set up and your server's down, your company's down, then you've got to make sure you get like a new disk ordered, you got to get it installed, make sure everything's up and running again, where within Azure, you get things like the redundancy options within things like your VMs and all other resources where it'll replicate it amongst different areas throughout the world or the country to make sure that if there was an issue in the data center where you're currently working from, that it can be moved to another one if there was something to go wrong to keep your business up and running.
Yeah, even I think even simple things like power outages or internet outages. I think I can safely say with our combined experience in cloud, we've never seen a data center go down because of a power outage or an internet outage, but we've seen plenty of businesses have that issue.
Yeah, especially with a local business, say if you've got your server in your office,
Yeah.
the issues with like a power outage, that'd be down to just your, obviously maybe the area where you are, although something like a Microsoft data center that's hosting numerous businesses across the UK and possibly around the world as well, with the redundancy and replication that they have set up.
Yeah.
They've got things in place to make sure that sort of issue isn't going to occur. And like you said, we haven't seen that happen up to this point of when we've been dealing with this.
Cool. So I'll go on to the third myth that is mentioned, that cloud is less secure than physical servers.
Yeah, that is, as we briefly touched on earlier, it is a big thing that people worry about in the cloud. Like I'd said, you're able to access it from anywhere. So a big part of moving to something like Microsoft Azure, you need to make sure you have a good IT team behind it to set it up and get the security options right to only allow who you want to allow onto your data.
Yeah, I think we see that the main issues are not inherent security problems with cloud services. It's more of the configuration or misconfiguration that causes the security issues.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think that's why they need a strong MSP like us behind them. It can't be done really by somebody who's not trained on cloud.
No, there's so many things that you could open up to the world that would leave your company at risk.
Yeah.
That you need to know what you're looking at to be able to get yourself set up, which companies like ourselves and other MSPs would be available in those situations, or if companies even have their own IT to set these sort of things up. You don't want anybody to be pushing you down the road of cloud.
No. I think one of the biggest benefits of having especially with Azure, having data in there is obviously Azure data centers hold a lot of ISO accreditation, and they encrypt the data by default for a lot of services that are in there.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you're a business that needs that certification, to show that you're compliant. I'm trying to think of the word of if you need that level of
you need to show that you're working to that sort of compliance level. Then you can prove it in this way if it was the route that you were looking to go down. Yeah,
and I think one of the big things is, it might sound simple, but I think we've seen a lot that server cabinets on site and on prem are left open.
Yeah,
obviously that's not allowed at these big data centers. They're locked down, a bit like Fort Knox.
Yeah, there's many a times where personally myself dealing with a lot of onboardings where we'd come into a business and the server cab would just be in the back of somebody's office and no doors on the front. Anybody can get in there and do whatever they want.
Cool. So just moving on to the fourth myth I've got down here is some owners of businesses might say, if it's working for me, why would I change from on-prem and a server being on site?
It's it's a great point to make at that point in time. Although when you're speaking like that, you're likely not thinking of the hardware you have and its life cycle.
Yeah. Well, I know a big one actually. I think we know a lot of customers that would happily have stayed on Windows 10, Windows 7.
Yeah.
So it was just working.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not only is it all around a lot of things like the flexibility and the cost, but along with compliance and up-to-date security to make sure that you aren't left unprotected. Especially if you're on a physical, so let's say a physical server and say like a micro server, you've managed to get up to server 2016, which is going end of life probably in a year or two.
Yeah.
You've then got to start considering getting a new server in and new licensing for the server, SQL licensing if you're needing that as well.
Yeah.
And that is a big upfront cost to take, where when you compare it to something like Microsoft Azure, you don't have that upfront cost to bear.
Yeah.
You'll be paying that monthly and not be paying that large sum. And obviously, like we've already touched on, the flexibility of it, you can scale upwards and downwards, whether you've got busy periods or you're looking to grow the business.
Or around Christmas, we with cloud services, we can turn them services off.
Yeah. Turn them off, scale them up, whichever they need and at whichever time.
Yeah.
It works around the customer very well.
What workloads would you see physical on-prem being still suitable for, and what type of business?
The biggest point that I see where cloud doesn't fit a customer would usually be to do with bandwidth and broadband.
Yeah.
Not necessarily saying if you're working on like a copper line, you're only getting like 60 down, then you wouldn't be able to, which that would be more than enough to work from the cloud, depending on the sort of workload you're looking at. Although companies where, say, if they aren't able to get a good enough bandwidth, then they'd struggle in that realm, and maybe a physical server would suit them more at that point.
Yeah. Obviously, we have gone over some of the risks for that level. Obviously, some of them being resilience.
Yeah.
Obviously, having little scalability or easy scalability, and obviously being long-term sustainable.
Yeah.
Like some of the parts you mentioned with obviously the server OS and the hardware it runs on. I think the most common one we're seeing with our businesses at the moment is the hybrid one. Obviously, that's a mixture of cloud services and having physical servers on site. I think the biggest one we have with that setup is obviously having a physical server, but with Exchange Online and SharePoint, which are obviously really common cloud services that are out at the moment. So they get a bit of best of both worlds.
Yeah. A big part of why that does help, if somebody is looking to work with a physical server at the time, but they do want to start dipping the toes into cloud and working in that way, you notice a lot of software nowadays where a lot of them were hosted on-prem. A lot of them push towards a SaaS model where you can set up things like SSO with your Microsoft to be able to log in a lot easier and manage your user accounts for security, as well as it allowing to push your MFA over to that platform as well.
Yeah,
which is a good start to move towards cloud if you aren't in a state to do so at the time.
Obviously, I think we've gone over one of the foundations, but obviously to become fully cloud, obviously some of the foundations of that being obviously bandwidth, obviously having the operating system, the update operating system, or a cloud-friendly operating system.
Yeah.
For that, such as Windows 11.
Touching back into that as well, something that businesses may think would stop them from moving to the cloud would be, say, like on-premise software. Like if their software is running from like an on-premise version of SQL Standard, and it relies on that server to be running and them to be in, say, the office or in a VPN to connect, that's not necessarily a roadblock to move to the cloud either, because obviously Microsoft Azure offers VM solutions where you can run things like a Windows 2025 standard with a SQL standard as well on top.
Yeah, I think they even offer a lift and shift version.
Yeah, with Azure Migrate.
Yeah,
it's a great tool to analyze your current infrastructure on the server and everything like that to make sure you are compatible.
Yeah, and I think one other thing to mention is I know Microsoft are not out to get your money. They're wanting you on the cloud, but also wanting you to use the cloud efficiently. I know that Azure Advisor that sits within Azure that constantly monitors your cloud services and looks for ways where you can save money or efficiencies in there. Cool. Thank you everyone for listening, and thank you, Morgan.
Thank you.
Thank you.